You did just finish Tears of the Nameless, though, and I'm so proud of you.
Applause,
You
please.
did it.
We don't know, when it takes place in Qui-Gon's life.
Before he dies.
Great.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Last Week in Star Wars. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And we're filming this part of the video podcast on Friday. We did film the whole thing on Thursday like we normally do. You know, we've been talking about Kathleen Kennedy and all of that roller coaster that's been happening this past week. We gave our full take on the whole situation, and then right afterwards, she did an interview and cleared everything up. So
we went out to trivia last night. We were having fun with friends, having a drink, and then got a text message with the link to the article, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have to film again tomorrow.
Yeah, because none of what we said would have made as much sense. So we're going to retake all that because now Kathleen Kennedy, is she retiring? Is she not? She has gone on to Deadline, did an interview to clear things up, and in her words, the truth is, and I want to just say loud and clear, I am not retiring. What's happening at Lucasfilm is I have been talking for quite some time with both Bob and Alan about what eventual succession might look like. We have an amazing bunch of people here, and we have every intention of making an announcement months or a year down the road. I'm producing the Mandalorian movie right now, and I'm also producing Sean Levy's movie, which is after that. We'll probably make an announcement months or a year out, and I have every intention of sticking around to help that person be successful. So I did kind of pull some of those quotes and jam them together. I think that was the most important information. So she is going to step down as president of Lucasfilm at some point.
Eventually.
Yeah. We'll probably hear about the plan for that and who is going to succeed her at some point in the next 12 months is what I'm gathering.
Yeah.
But she is not going to retire. It's the rest of that article is she just loves making movies. And I think she wants to go back to just that bread and butter. She won't have so much stress as the president. She can just produce a movie here or there, whether it's Star Wars or something else completely different.
Yeah. And this makes total sense to me. And it is funny seeing the reactions now to this news and how people are like, well, she still says that she's retiring. And it's yeah, obviously. That's what the woman is going to retire at some point.
Yeah, she's 71. I mean, the thing is that we were talking about on Thursday, we were yeah, this makes sense for her to start thinking about her retirement. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's probably been thinking about it for a while, but I mean, she doesn't want to retire. She said literally I will die making movies. And I'm okay. I would want to retire personally, but go for it.
I mean, she's at a point right now in her career where she knows she can still contribute, and if she still wants to, then she has every right to, because she's helped build Lucasfilm, right, and build it up to what it is now.
And the reaction to all of this has been exhausting in every sense, because of course when the news was coming out, there were a bunch of people celebrating. And then when CNN, I think, said, well, this isn't really true from what we're hearing, a bunch of other people were celebrating and everyone's fighting. And I don't know, I just don't care that much about who is the president of Lucasfilm. No matter who steps into the role next, they're going to have some hits and they're going to have some misses, just like what's happening now.
Right.
And I get so tired of the people who want to say everything wrong with Star Wars is her fault and anything good that happens is in spite of her and not because of her.
Yeah.
It's all crazy.
It's a franchise as big as Star Wars, they're never going to be able to do anything that is going to please everyone. And that includes whoever is in charge in that CEO, in that president seat, in the hot seat. And
that's what they should call it.
Yeah. Welcome to the hot seat.
Who's in the hot seat at Lucasfilm?
Good luck. And another part of it is people just need someone to blame. If they don't like something having to do with their favorite franchise, who do we blame? And
especially on the internet.
Kathleen Kennedy tends to be the choice that people go with for who's to blame. And that is wild to me, and it should be wild to everyone else, I think, that the idea that just because you didn't enjoy something means that she ruined your childhood.
Right.
And she's responsible for everything that you don't like about a franchise.
Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear that, like, I don't think that Kathleen Kennedy is above criticism, because I don't think the past 10 years of Star Wars have been perfect, but I don't think the next 10 years are going to be perfect either, no matter what. There are going to be some Star Wars projects that just hit me and I connect with, like the Star Wars Jedi games and or Skeleton Crew, the High Republic. There have been some things that I've just fallen head over heels in love with. And then there's been some stuff that, you know, hasn't really worked for me. And I'm just like, oh, well, like, I knew that was going to be the case in 2012. I remember having that thought of like, oh, they're going to do a movie every year. I'm not going to like all of them. Like, I just knew that and I had accepted that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I say this all the time, but I feel very lucky as a Star Wars fan, just from the sheer amount of content that we've been given. You look at other big franchises, and I don't think that they're getting as much stuff as we are in regards to, like, books, comic books, short stories, in magazines, TV shows, movies. We haven't gotten a lot of movies in a while, but there's a lot being worked on and a lot being planned. So to have all of that, and there's like a little bit of something for everyone in all of those things, video games too.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up movies and video games, and to talk about criticisms, those are especially in the past 6 years, where I think, you know, the franchise has really struggled, and they're trying to find their footing again. And Star Wars is primarily an on-screen franchise. That's how most people experience it. Not everyone reads the books and comics like we do. So
Sure.
When you're like really deep in it, yeah, I do feel like there's so much variety and so much to find and love. But yeah, like I do hope, obviously, that they find their footing with movies again. But as a fan who's like really deep in it, I have found a lot to love and enjoy.
I was happy to see this article come out for the pure fact that I would like to see Kathleen Kennedy be able to control the narrative a little bit better, like she's able to do here. And it shouldn't come down to all of these news outlets saying whether or not she's going to retire for her to be able to do that. I don't know if going forward, like, if Lucasfilm could just be like a little bit more open with everything. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, well, it's such a struggle. And the article goes into the fact that Star Wars is so scrutinized. And I mean, it's not the only franchise. I think the MCU, like, people follow the development of those films as well. But Kathleen talks about how a lot of the things that are going on at Lucasfilm are very normal. A lot of projects enter development. That doesn't mean they're all going to go into production. And we just wind up hearing about so much stuff. And then, yeah, some of it falls through and everyone's like, what's going on over there? Granted, some of that was officially announced by Lucasfilm, like the Benioff and Weiss movies, the Rian Johnson trilogy.
Right.
Like, there have been some times where they have announced things that they probably shouldn't have, but a lot of things we're hearing about just because things leak in the industry.
Yeah.
And so we just hear so much extra about Star Wars.
Yeah, there is a whole, it's like an industry within an industry, right? Like, the news industry constantly preys on what's happening in the film industry, and like there's so much money and fame to be made by like covering things like what's coming out, what's about to come out, what might come out. So that's just like a whole other kind of entertainment industry issue. But I did like that in this article she got to speak on that a little bit. So the interviewer is asking her about projects that may or may not be in development, and she says, it is the development. It doesn't matter if you're doing Star Wars or anything else. What's troubling and frustrating is that our development gets scrutinized, and I don't know any other production company where their development gets scrutinized like that. It's very hard for anything to happen within Star Wars without some aspect of it becoming public before you even want it to become public. So I guess managing the message in some way is also quite a challenge. So she goes into that a little bit and it's gotta be incredibly frustrating for Star Wars and for Lucasfilm to lose control a little bit over what is or isn't happening.
Right. And I think, I don't know, maybe the announcements made at Celebration London were made because they just didn't want some of that stuff to leak. Like, it was already starting to, so they were probably trying to control the message a little bit. Mm-hmm. But they might not have been ready to announce all that stuff because, you know, the new Jedi Order movie is still like, what's going on there? It still seems a little ways off. Same with the Mangold movie. Same with the Filoni movie. Like, all three of those movies are still somewhere down the line. And it's like, yeah, it just seems very difficult to balance. Like, are we ready to announce this? It's going to come out anyway. Should we talk about it?
And like, there's a reason why things wait to get announced. It could be that they're still trying to perfect what the project is. It could be that whatever the climate is in the entertainment industry at that time is not a good time to announce a project. So like, there's so much going on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't take into account. And that is just a tough part about being a fan of this franchise and then going on the internet and seeing a million different news takes on like what is or isn't happening. Mm-hmm. So it's tough.
It's just like, it's the business side of Star Wars that just doesn't interest me nearly as much. Like, I want to talk about silly lore. I really do. And so obviously business is always going to affect, like, we need the business side so new projects come out so I can talk about more silly lore. But yeah, I've just never really super cared about who is or isn't president of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, and you know, whoever succeeds her in this position will get all the same flack eventually. You know, like the people who are targeting Kathleen Kennedy for all of their issues, they're just going to move along to whoever's next. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's just kind of a sad reality.
Well, within that interview, she also dropped some details about those upcoming projects. So she talked about both the Simon Kinberg project and the Sean Levy movie. She did say that that was next after The Mandalorian and Grogu, and said it'll be maybe 5 or 6 years out from The Rise of Skywalker. And then also said that Simon Kinberg is writing a script right now, actually said writing scripts, multiple, and that is the new saga that moves us into the future. So to me, it sounds like we are going to have a couple more, I don't know if spin-off movies is the right thing to call whatever Sean Levy's project is, but
yeah,
we're building up to a new trilogy or saga or something.
Yeah, like a bridge build up kind of, I think. For it is interesting to think of the Sean Levy film as a bridge to the eventual New Jedi Order Rey movie. Maybe this is setting up a little bit more for that eventual film.
Yeah, so that movie did not come up in this article at all, which I thought was surprising, but they've also been talking about it so much outside of just this week. You know, we've heard about new writers, and it's supposed to be set 15 years later. So it does, yes, I agree. It makes sense that maybe just for chronological reasons, let's do Sean Levy's story, and then we'll do maybe the new Jedi Order movie, and then the Simon Kinberg films might go beyond that when like the new Jedi Order is fully fleshed out. I don't know.
Yeah. And at first I was like a little nervous that she didn't mention the new Jedi Order movie or the Rey movie at all, and instead was saying, oh yeah, this Sean Levy project is coming up next, because we were all kind of surprised at that news and the fact that it got pushed so far ahead of schedule. We were all kind of like, oh, okay.
Clearing up that timeline, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And, you know, people complain about the sequel trilogy and how it was rushed and the story was all over the place and they weren't ready. So to me, if we see them kind of like shuffling things around and adding this movie in before the new Jedi Order movie, like that kind of tells me that they are planning this, trying to plan this better and like situate everything just right.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think it was Shigeru Miyamoto, I think, from Nintendo, who said that a delayed game is temporary, a bad game is forever. And it kind of, I think that a lot of the issues from the sequel trilogy stem from a rush of like, these are the release dates for these movies. Now go write a story for it. Mm-hmm. And obviously there were a lot of issues popping up during the production, and Iger wouldn't allow for any wiggle room. So I think that more time developing that entire story would have been good. So it has been frustrating to have 6 years of no movies. By the time we get one, it'll be 7 years. But hopefully that means that they're really like taking their time, figuring it out, and not rushing into it.
Yeah. Another thing that she brings up in that article is just like how different the industry is now and how kind of constantly evolving and changing it is, and how like the way people want to consume media and see movies and television is different now. And it's constantly evolving. And the entertainment business has to constantly try to keep up with that and figure out what is it that people want? How do they want to see it? You know, is it movies? Is it TV? And it's constantly changing. And that's just like really tough to work around.
Yeah, the advent of streaming. And I mean, like, we're definitely changing how we watch, like, the MCU, for example. I used to want to go every opening weekend, and I don't think we've done that since Shang-Chi. We'll probably do it for the Avengers movies when they come back, but, like, I just haven't been that interested to keep up with it, like, right away.
Been seeing a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, we've been seeing a lot of non-franchise stuff.
And it's nice to be able to, like, go see a fun horror movie and not worry about, well, what are they going to do next?
We were seeing Hard Eyes, and I was just, like, applauding its restraint, which, really fun movie, and at the end, I was like, oh, and here's where they're going to set up a sequel, and they didn't do it, and I was like, okay, really fun.
Like, yeah, horror movies, I think, are a special breed because you can really wedge in a sequel just about anywhere and make it work.
And I'm not saying there won't be a Hard Eyes 2, but, like, I just felt that they showed restraint there. We also saw The Monkey, a lot of fun. Like, yeah, we've been big into horror lately. Mm-hmm. The last little thing to mention from that article is that she talked about the Taika Waititi movie, which I kind of figured that one was just gone. Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was another one that was going to fade away.
It sounded more like they want to work with Taika. Taika's very busy. They're kind of just working off of his schedule, it sounded like.
That is something else that she brought up, that, you know, doing Star Wars requires a commitment, and all these people are very busy. I mean, Mangold just did Indy 5, that Bob Dylan movie, and I know he has Swamp Thing somewhere in there, and the Dawn of the Jedi movie. So it is a question of, like, when can this talent do the work? Mm-hmm. When can they spend 2 to 3 years? I mean, it's like Tony Gilroy. She kind of made a joke about that, of like, he probably did not expect that he would be doing Star Wars for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
After stepping in to help Rogue One.
Right.
So there is that level of just, if you want to work in Star Wars, you have to know that it's going to be a commitment for a while.
Huge commitment. And it's going to mean that you have to turn down a lot of other projects.
Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to sit here for 2 to 3 years while the internet yells at you the whole time.
You can't get any other work in that time. You're fully dedicated to this. So, yeah.
But I think that catches us up on all the new news. So we'll just tack this on at the beginning of what we filmed originally for Thursday, and now we'll move on to the Andor trailer. But our next big news story of the week is that the Andor Season 2, I want to call it a teaser trailer. They said it was the first trailer, but 90 seconds, I'm like, that's a teaser.
Definitely a teaser.
So,
I mean, we didn't hear much dialogue. It was just which we'll talk about the music.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of like real quick shots, a lot of quotes, really championing how great the show is.
That's like,
trust us, it's amazing. Here's what everyone says about it.
Part of the reason I want to call it a teaser is because it didn't really seem to really get into the substance of Andor. I mean, it did, but not in the style that I think we're used to seeing it.
Yeah.
It just seemed very fast, lots of explosions, lots of action, lots of quotes, and not Star Wars-y music. It was an actual real-world song that was very thematically relevant, but it was an odd trailer. Still got me hyped.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of the music?
I didn't mind it.
I didn't either, which I'm surprised. At first, it started to play, and I thought that it was going to be kind of a Major Tom Skeleton Crew thing where I thought we were about to get like Fortunate Son in a tease.
It did kind of have that ring to it.
But yeah, it was the Revolution Starts Now by Steve Early. And I can't recall ever having actual real world music in a Star Wars trailer before. I think they eased us into it with Major Tom.
Yeah, I don't know. I have thoughts on using real world music in Star Wars, especially in trailers. I think it's good. I think it's kind of a good way to get people's attention without a lot of like very Star Wars-y dialogue, plus upbeat, catchy music that some people might recognize. That's immediately going to get non-Star Wars fans' attention. And that's who they want to look at this. They know Star Wars fans are going to look at this trailer. They want new people to look.
That is exactly my thought, is that the people who watched Andor, for the most part, seem to really love it. Like, it is one of the most well-received shows I can recall. And they didn't even need to put a trailer out. I would have been excited for season 2 anyway. So I think this trailer was for more casual Star Wars fans that may have skipped Andor the first time because it was not the most watched show.
Yeah.
Its viewership did go up. I am like crossing my fingers that it keeps a strong viewership when it's out. But I think that they were like, yeah, let's try to market this to not the hardcore Star Wars fans. And then when we hopefully get a full like 2.5 minute trailer, that might feel a little more like Andor-ish.
Yeah. And I think that's also kind of a reason why they've not really had a lot of aliens in it. And that's kind of a shame. Like I don't want this to sound like they're making Andor not for Star Wars fans, because like the first season didn't have a lot of aliens in it.
Right.
But yeah, not a lot of aliens, not a lot of dialogue in this teaser that sounds Star Wars-y. Music doesn't sound super Star Wars-y. I think all of this is mostly just to get the attention of some new viewers. And I think that's fine to do.
I actually think that season 2 might become pulpier and weirder than season 1. Season 1 did feel just very set apart on its own, like barely any aliens. When they did pop up, it was fun. Like the big guy Vetch,
Yeah.
He just told me to stand here.
Yeah.
Like, he's super fun.
Well,
The two brothers who were fishing after Narkina 5, like it's there, but it's not super present. I'm kind of thinking the closer we get to A New Hope, the more Star Wars-y Andor will feel.
oh yeah.
It'll be interesting.
I think it'll still feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Maybe just this teaser doesn't feel as Star Wars-y as some of the other ones.
And I don't even want to criticize, like, I kind of wish Andor were slightly more pulpy, but that's like such a nitpick because I love that show. So
yeah, we have pulpy stuff in Star Wars. The Mandalorian is really, really pulpy.
This is just a different flavor, but I'm curious to see if season 2 kind of shifts a little bit over these 4 arcs. Like every arc is going to get us closer to Rogue One. And so, I mean, maybe Cassian's going to go on an adventure with Bistan, the space monkey.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
That'd be fun. You brought up the music and how it was relevant. I didn't recognize the song when I heard it, but it is talking about revolution.
I want to point out that just about everything I know about this song is because of Ken Knapsack on Force Center. He talked about the song at length. He's my musical expert. So I'll link to their discussion of the trailer as well, because they had a lot of good, interesting things to say about the song and what it means.
Sounds like the message of the song is very much attuned to the message of Andor.
And it's good because the first season is about Cassian becoming a revolutionary. At the start, he does not care about the fight against the Empire, and then by the end of season 1, he is like all the way either kill me or let me join you. Like that's about as revolutionary as you can get. So season 2, it's like the revolution starts now in episode 1.
Let's go.
And we have one more bit of news. Our friend Sean texted me. He was like, I think Disney saw you talking about how it was a slow news week the past few weeks. And they're like, all right, how about this? Revenge of the Sith is coming back to theaters on April 25th for 1 week because it is the 20th anniversary of the film. And
the exciting bit, I think, for this announcement, not only is it coming back into theaters, it will be in the 4DX theaters.
Really? I did not see that.
We have never experienced a 4DX.
That might be the time to go for the very first time.
I think so. If we can find a showing. Also, it's only going to be out for a week, which I can't remember how long Phantom Menace was out. I think it was out more than just a week, but
I don't know. It might have just been a weekend. I can't remember.
I don't think it was. But anyways, I wish it were going to be out a little bit longer than that, but yeah, I do think it's exciting that it's coming out in this new format.
It's also going to be out in the middle of Andor, right after we get back from Celebration. So we'll be jet lagged, but I'll still go. I want to sit in a 4DX theater, get that butt rumble,
shake you around.
Shake me around a little bit. Wake me up.
Shake the jet lag right out of you.
But let's move on to last week in canon, and the first thing we're going to talk about is still very Andor adjacent. Reign of the Empire came out on Tuesday. We're not going to get into like big spoiler discussions about this because it's a fairly long book. It just came out. Don't want to spoil anything for anyone. I did want to talk about it a little bit if you had any questions or...
Yeah, feels like we've been talking about it a while, but it's because we got the advanced copy and the review's been out for a while. So now that everyone can purchase it officially and it's fully out, yeah, just give me an elevator pitch for this book.
Yeah.
As someone who has a terrible track record of reading, it puts me to sleep.
You did just finish Tears of the Nameless, though, and I'm so proud of you.
Applause,
you
please.
Did it.
I will put my own applause.
Yeah, you should definitely put like an applause.
Right here.
Sitcom applause track.
It's awful how bad I am at reading. I can read. It's just hard for me to like focus long enough without like falling asleep. Anyways, I did finish Tears of the Nameless. I loved it. I'm excited for the next one.
Mm-hmm. So that was a very pulpy adventure race throughout the galaxy to explore tombs and stuff. Reign of the Empire does have like ruins and tombs. I'll say that there is an element of that.
Where is it set mostly?
Like immediately after Revenge of the Sith.
I mean, like location wise.
Oh, Coruscant and there's a new planet that I would say those are the two primary locations.
Okay.
But yeah, it picks up in the days following Revenge of the Sith. Palpatine has just taken power. It's kind of focused on Mon Mothma and Bail Organa the most. Saw Gerrera is also a significant part of the story. I really loved seeing Mon and Bail at this point because we're very used to seeing them as just allies. Like, they are the leadership of the Rebel Alliance. At this point, they are politically aligned, but their methods are very different, and they kind of don't like each other. So it's like...
How are their methods different at this point?
Mon wants to be very like political about how they fight back against Palpatine, and Bale is way more interested in justice for the Jedi because he's like,
okay,
this is BS. I know they didn't like betray the Republic, and he wants to prove, he thinks that if he can catch Palpatine in a lie, that'll be the end of it.
I totally get Mon's frustration with that because I think I see where Bale's coming from, and I see exactly why he would want to focus in on that. But I think as Mon Mothma goes into this, she would be like, it doesn't matter at this point. The damage has been done. Like, we probably can't catch him in a lie, and if we do, no one's going to believe us over him at this point.
That's like part of the brilliance of this book, I think, is showing they're both valid viewpoints, but it's just like, you've got to get on the same page. You got to come together if you're going to solve this. You got to work together and compromise.
Democrats, hope you're listening.
Right. Like, it's not just the struggle against fascism. It's also just like the struggle to work together and agree on what is the best route. It's a very relevant book. I'll say that.
Yep.
So in my review, I was like, it's not a fun read. It's not like an exciting jaunt throughout the galaxy. It's
depends on your definition of fun.
I mean, like,
if what's going on in the world right now, if the idea of that being translated into Star Wars, if reading a book like that is interesting to you, you could maybe say that would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's just...
But a lot of people use Star Wars as escapism, right? And then being so closely reminded how similar this story is to what's happening in real life right now can also be a daunting thing. It's a strange book. Both are valid.
It's a strange book to talk about because I think it's awesome. It's written for fans of Andor, and that is very much true. Like, very political, very political thriller. It's intense, but yeah, it's not a book that I like sped through. It was a book that I would like read a few chapters and be like, I gotta set that aside for a little bit and like process it. But it is very good.
I'm excited to get into it. And it is book 1 of 3, correct?
Yeah. So Alexander Freed wrote this one. He wrote the Rogue One novelization, Battlefront Twilight Company, and 3 of my favorite Star Wars books, the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. I
did read the Rogue One novelization, and I really, really liked it because we got a lot more internal dialogue from like Jyn and Cassian.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a great segue into the second piece of canon that came out this past week. It was the Rise of Skywalker adaptation #1, the first comic adaptation by Jody Houser. And most of the time, I don't really like covering the comic adaptations. Haven't really been doing that for the Ahsoka comic adaptation because it just feels like, the episode and fast forward. This took its time in a lot of places that I appreciated it for. There were still some moments like speeding through Kylo getting to Exegol. Like, it's fast where they're like, you watch the movie, you know what happens. And then it slows down to give us more of Rey's internal dialogue. There are flashbacks to Leia's training with Luke. There's flashbacks to Rey healing the Kyber crystal. We can talk about this. You shared some of this on Blue Sky, and it got a little controversial. But there's more for Rose's story.
A little bit.
And I thought that Jody Houser did a really good job of saying why Rose needed to stay behind. And we were trying to talk about this on Blue Sky, and people got upset because of how sidelined Rose was in The Rise of Skywalker.
And yeah, rightfully so. And I realize, well, I was trying not to take a lot of the quote tweets personally, because it is just people upset about how Rose as a character was treated, which we totally agree with.
Yes.
But it is kind of exciting that because we don't normally cover the comic adaptations, this one adding just a little bit more context and a little bit more insight into Rose's character, which there might be a lot more to come, I think is nice.
I agree. And like fully, I remember in The Rise of Skywalker when Finn has that line of like, Rose, last chance to come. That very line seems almost rude. And then Rose has to be like, the general said I had to stay behind. And it's like, no, the writers did.
Yeah.
Like, that always irked me. So Jodie Houser coming in, and I think she's doing her best to be like, all right, I have to follow the story of the movie. I have to adapt the movie, but I'm going to take some time with Rose and give her scenes with Leia. And
that's another big part of it is we get more dialogue from Leia this way, which Leia was always supposed to be a bigger part in episode 9. And because we tragically lost Carrie Fisher, they had to kind of pivot a little bit. So
they only had so much to work with.
Right. And so not only are we getting a little bit more insight for Rose, we're getting a little bit more from Leia. And so I think, yeah, seeing the two of them talk a little bit more about why Rose is staying back was nice to see.
Yeah. And I agree. It's not like that fixes the Rise of Skywalker or the underlying issue of Rose being sidelined. I still dislike that. But I think Jodie is just doing her best.
And I don't know if we'll ever really find out why it's been so long to where this comic is just now coming out.
That I don't know.
I've seen a lot of people have that question too. I had no idea.
Honestly, though, I think it is better this way because it is able to connect to like Shadow of the Sith. It's able to just do a little more.
There was an image of like when Lando finds them on Pisana, there was like a flashback image of Luke and Lando on Pisana from Shadow of the Sith. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of nice, is that some other stuff surrounding the Rise of Skywalker has come out. This adaptation can then pull from those other stories. So all that to say, I think that this adaptation so far has been way better than most of the comic adaptations that have been coming out.
There was someone either on Blue Sky or Twitter who tagged me and asked if we were going to bring up this Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, a Batu adventure, which is a new children's book that came out. And it's one of those little gold books, which we don't really cover because it's for like real young kids. But this one is pretty cute. It's new. It's basically just a story of a family and a child that make a pit stop in Batu. And I guess the only reason why I wanted to bring it up is like, if you're a family and you have young children and you're trying to get them hyped up or interested at all in going to Galaxy's Edge, I think this is a good book to do that, because the little boy in this book kind of like goes and hits all the major spots that you would going to Galaxy's Edge and doing all the things there. So something to think about if you have young kids.
So I did not read this one. Yeah, we don't really cover the little gold books, but that kind of reminded me. I meant to bring this up weeks ago, but we were at our friend's house and they have a little boy and they have these Where's Wookiee books. They're Star Wars Where's Waldo. And so we were going through those with him, and it was a good lesson for me, good practice in not actuallying. Because he kept saying, like, that's Boba Fett. And I was trying to be like, no, that's Jango Fett. I was like, nope, just let him. It's fine. I don't need to be pedantic with this 3-year-old.
My favorite part of that interaction was the 3-year-old was like, look, it's Cabe.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you know
who Cabe is?
And there it was. It was Cabe.
He knows Cabe. He knows Asajj Ventress. I think he kept pointing at Asajj and going, she's bad. And then I was like trying to not actually, she gets redemption.
Oh, yeah. And then there was something about like stormtroopers versus clone troopers. And like, again, a good lesson for people who aren't around children much.
I was like in my head asking myself, why am I like this? Like, why is my instinct to like correct this child? But I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't.
That's what counts.
That's it for last week in canon. Wanted to give a little preview for next week. We have the first issue of Jedi Knights, which is very exciting. That's a new ongoing series from Mark Guggenheim. We're also getting Hyperspace Stories Qui-Gon Jinn, which has been delayed so many times. I'm thrilled we're going to finally get that. I think that is a full graphic novel about Qui-Gon.
I don't know that I've heard of this.
I can't tell you much more about it because I don't know.
We don't know like when it takes place in Qui-Gon's life.
Before he dies.
Great. I want one after he dies.
I mean, that would be cool too, like Force Ghost Qui-Gon, but no, I don't know the exact date or anything, so we'll talk about that next week when I read it. I also wanted to point out that a reference book is coming out, the new edition of Complete Locations, which those reference books are always a fun time. They show you like a good look at geography and stuff. You know, what's really inside Vader's castle and things like that.
Where's the bathroom?
Right. Where is the refresher?
We need to know.
Does he just pee in the Bacta tank?
Ew.
That's coming out in the UK on March 6th and in the United States on March 11th. DK Publishing actually very kindly gave us some exclusive spreads. So we have the Octo Island, Vader's Castle, and the Sith Citadel on Exegol. I'm planning on doing more videos about these spreads like within the next week, so look out for those. But I just wanted to shout out that book, which is written by Simon Beecroft, Carrie Doherty, Jason Fry, James Lucino, Kristen Lund, and Emilish Gokani. The art was done by Richard Chasemore, Maxim Degtyarev, Hans Jensen, Sophion Mumin, John Mulaney, and Kemp Ramillard.
John Mulaney?
Probably not that John Mulaney.
Okay.
Next up, we've got Last Week in Fandom, and not a whole lot that we found, but something cool that is also connected to Reign of the Empire.
Yeah, so if you've ever heard of the little free libraries, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're pretty much just that. They're like little standalone boxes that people can just kind of donate books to, and you can go and take a free book. It's kind of like a honor system, take one, leave one situation.
Our friend has one in her front yard. She built one.
Yeah, and we've seen them around the city, so it's pretty cool. And Star Wars / Disney put out some stuff on social media today about copies of The Mask of Fear being in several of these little free library locations, which is just cool. And you can just go and like get a free copy.
And not only that, but they put it out like as if it's the Empire doesn't want you to read this book, but we're spreading it around. And
right. Like it's contraband.
Yeah. So like you have to go and try to find it. Like that's such a good idea.
It is.
I saw that and I was like, what? First of all, I didn't see any marked down in Georgia.
There's one in Savannah. Which is pretty far.
It's just
from
a 5-hour drive. Okay. None in Atlanta. If there were, like, I might have gone to look just to find it. I wouldn't have taken it.
Yeah.
But it would have been fun to be like, found it.
Yeah, we can put a link in the description because they list out exact addresses for all of these little free libraries. So even if you don't make it in time to pick up this copy for free in there might be some other cool books in there that you could check out, or if you have extra copies of Star Wars books, you can go put them in. So yeah, kind of neat.
We're going to wrap up with last week's questions. We took a few from Patreon, and by the way, we did our comic book club this past week. We've done that like once a year the past couple years, and that's just kind of a catch up on all the comic books. Anyway, it was like a really fun discussion. Just if any of you are watching, I really love doing the book club. It's great. We have a great group of people, and talking about all the comics was a blast.
Yeah, I mean, since we've been talking more about the comics in these videos, it's nice to just have a place to chit-chat about the comics. You know, even book reviews can be harder to find these days, but comic reviews, I think, even more so.
Maybe next year you'll be in the comic book club because you're reading a lot more of the comics now.
I am. I'm getting caught up.
For our first question, David McLeod asks, if and when Kathleen Kennedy steps down, what message would we like to hear from new leadership about the future of the franchise?
I don't know if I have thoughts on a specific message other than I want them to be confident and really stick to their guns.
I would like them to say something about what their message is. I want them to kind of like George Nolfi did, talking about the values of Star Wars. I would like them to be able to convey what those values are to them.
Right.
What George Lucas established with the first 6 movies and the Clone Wars, and keeping in line with that. My nightmare would be if someone came in and said they were going to make sure that they don't make it woke or something stupid like that.
Whatever the message is that I want them to really commit to. Obviously, I don't want it to be like, oh, we're scaling back on diversity, we're doing this, we're doing that, you know, like...
It just reminds me of when that actor from that Spider-Man show said, oh, I was afraid they were going to make it woke, but they didn't. And like that word has just become a nonsense word to me. Anytime someone says it to me, I just like hear circus music and I don't listen to the rest of the sentence.
I like what Jane Fonda said at the SAG Awards. She did a whole speech and accepted a Lifetime Achievement Award. And she just said, a lot of people are throwing around the word woke. Woke just means that you care about other people.
Yes, it does. Like, it is just empathy. And yeah, that would be my nightmare, is if someone just came in and said, we're going to take the politics out of Star Wars or something.
I do understand that the position of head of Lucasfilm, president of Lucasfilm, is kind of similar, I think, to almost like being a politician now. And I totally understand the reasons behind kind of like not wanting to really strictly stand behind a message. And that is just unfortunate. That is an unfortunate side effect of the times that we live in now. Like, people are scared to say certain things. And with the people that are in charge right now, I guess it makes sense. So I could go on about what messages I would like to hear. I don't expect to hear them anytime soon.
Honestly, if there is any kind of message, I expect it to be the most milquetoast crap. Like, it probably isn't going to say much of anything.
It'll be very vanilla.
Yeah. Kyle Barrett and or Mappa both ask what we think of Andor's new release schedule.
Hot topic.
I'm growing accustomed to it. I have accepted it. I was not thrilled with it at first.
Yeah, it's hard to say until we really experience it, but there's definitely 2 sides to it. One, I'm upset that we won't get more than 4 weeks of like experiencing Andor season 2 together as a fandom. But after thinking about it for a while, I was like, I do feel like these little 3-episode arcs are going to feel more succinct being released this way. It sounds like maybe it was meant to be viewed in this way, which we've complained a lot in the past about, just like the episodes not feeling like full complete stories,
right.
Like start, middle, end. So I think that will help.
I agree. And I definitely think, looking back at season 1, you know, the first 2 arcs, if they had just done a 2-episode premiere for Andor instead of that 3, I think I would have been confused. Like, that's how it ends. He's just walking through a scrapyard and an admittedly awesome drum solo is happening, but like then it's just over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needed that full 3-episode premiere. And then the Aldhani arc, episode 4 ends with just like, Joseph Scrimshaw makes this joke all the time in Force Center, but like, okay, Cassian, do your homework.
Yeah. That's
how it ends. After that, I think that the episodes had better they felt complete to me. I never really felt like the Narkina 5 episodes had weird endings. The rest of that season feels good as far as episodes go. So now that I know the deal of how this show works, I was like, okay, I'm fine to do 1 episode at a time.
Right.
I was looking forward to 12 or so weeks of Andor. So yeah, I'm bummed that it's just going to be like here and gone very quickly, but I do think getting a movie a week for 4 weeks is going to be pretty rad.
Yeah. And there's also the conversation of the Emmys. Right. Supposedly the cutoff date to be considered for Emmys within a calendar year is like the end of May 31st. So it would make total sense that they would want to get this whole season out to be considered for Emmy nominations. So I'm all for Star Wars getting more Emmys.
Yeah, hopefully. So I get that. Also, just knowing that this was a statement made by Tony Gilroy on StarWars.com, where it was like, Tony Gilroy is announcing that they're going to be aired like this. I'm like, if this is his creative decision, I'm all for it. If he thinks this is how this should be viewed, great.
Yeah.
My gut reaction was that Disney was like, I don't know, let's just throw it out and get this over with. Like, and I was like, why would you do that? But if it's Tony Gilroy saying that, and it's not some weird streaming business decision, then I accept that.
It was interesting seeing the fan response to this viewing order and release schedule, because a lot of the hardcore fans were either really psyched about it or really upset by it. So just interesting seeing different people's points of view on how they consume their media.
Yeah.
And a totally valid argument is like, people with really crazy job hours, or people with kids who can't maybe like sit down for that long of a time for 3 episodes worth of time to watch, then they have to be really, really careful about spoilers for the next few days until they can watch everything. So I get the problems that may arise with this, but we'll just have to figure it out.
I think there are pros and cons to both. And really, when it's all out, a year from now, when we're like, hey, let's rewatch all of Andor, I'm not going to think about the release schedule. I'm just going to be like, yay, let's watch Andor. And we're going to go through it and enjoy it. So, yeah, someone in our comments, when I was kind of whining about it in the Andor trailer reaction, they were like, this is a one-time problem. And I'm like, you are right. You are correct.
I think because 3 episodes is a lot of content for someone to watch all in one day, we have been kind of talking about how we're going to cover the episodes weekly. Normally we do our after shows Wednesday nights. But right now we're doing the Lego streams Wednesday nights. We may be able to keep Lego streams Wednesdays and do our after shows Thursdays, just to give people a little extra time to watch all 3 episodes, but we're still kind of workshopping that.
Yeah, we wanted to hear what you all thought. Would you rather us wait an extra day and do the after shows on Thursdays? Would you prefer they're on Wednesday? Because, I mean, we're still going to watch them all that night. I'm going to try to get my review out the next day. So yeah, just let us know what you think, whether you would want a Wednesday or a Thursday after show. But that's it for Last Week in Star Wars. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
And consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.